Hi, my name's Sue and this is Sue Maree P. I love baking with spelt flour and every year I try and improve on my hot cross bun recipe for Easter. This year I think it's better than ever. I've included dates and raisins and orange zest and orange juice. There's no dairy, no eggs. It's perfect for anyone following a plant-based diet or vegan diet. Look at this, look how fluffy and light it is. It's so delicious. So if you'd like to see how to make these delicious spelt hot cross buns, come with me and let's see. So step one to make our spelt hot cross buns today, we need to heat up some milk. I'm going to use soya milk today. Feel free to use regular milk or your favourite plant-based milk. I've made spelt hot cross buns before with pea milk, oat milk, regular milk, whatever's your preferred thing. So we're just going to heat this up until it's warm. So I'll do a few 30-second zaps in the microwave, or you can do it on the stove top in a small saucepan. So I've heated my milk up. It's slightly too warm now, and if that happens, just rest it for another few minutes, like 3 to 5 minutes before we put the yeast in, because we don't want to deactivate the yeast. If the milk's too hot, it can damage the yeast. But while we're doing that, or while we're waiting for that, I've got everything else measured out. So in this large mixing bowl, I'm going to pop my spelt flour. I'm doing white spelt flour today, and there's 525 grams, which is UK or Australian 3 3/4 cups. I haven't tried this with all whole grain flour. If you want a little bit of whole grain spelt flour, add a little bit in. It'll just mean the bun is a little bit tougher. And if you don't use spelt flour, just use regular plain flour or bread flour. Into that, I'm going to add all my spices. I've got a teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of mixed spice, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, and I've got half a teaspoon of freshly ground cardamom. I love the black cardamom you can buy here in Sweden. If you can't get that where you are, you can just add in regular ground cardamom, but it won't be as strong, so maybe add a teaspoon. But you can mix and match the spices to what you've got in the house and what your taste buds are. So let's just mix that together. Into that, I'm going to grate the zest of 1 orange. If you've clicked on for the first time, welcome. I love baking with spelt flour, and I like baking with buckwheat flour and doing some gluten-free ideas. So if eating that way or eating semi-healthy is your preferred option, feel free to subscribe. There's a little bit of zest from what I did earlier. Actually, the milk's good to go now. So let's pop that on the stand mixer. If I can get it on right. So in here, I'm going to activate my yeast. So I've got 10 grams, which is a little bit more than some of my other recipes. And it's 1.5 packets, like of the little packets of the dried yeast, or 3.5 teaspoons. So I'm just going to sprinkle that into my milk here and give it a little bit of a stir. I'm just going to let that rest for about 5 to 10 minutes until it's nice and activated. This is a great way to check if your yeast is still active, and also a great way to just speed up the process of leavening the buns. So we've got not going to use sugar or honey or anything. I'm going to put maple syrup in, so it's vegan friendly, and I'm going to put in some oil. I've got some sunflower oil here, but if you prefer butter, you can add butter, and I'll pop some alternative measurements above, or as the video goes. And you can click along the video. If you look down below, I've got chapters, so if you don't need to know the whole process of how to make it and you want to see the finished product, you can just click along. I don't think I've ever explained that. It's a really great way to speed up watching the video. You don't have to watch the whole thing. While we're waiting for the yeast, I'm going to juice this orange. Sometimes I can't speak. My brain goes faster than my words or my lips. So we're going to use the juice of 1 orange. And this is quite a large orange. I will weigh it for you so you know how much there is. So I've got my scales here. I'm just going to pour this juice into the glass so I can tell what I've got. It's about 115 mils. I'll add it in, but if I need to adjust my ratio of my dough, like with my flour, if it gets too moist, I'll just do that as I'm kneading it. Okay, check that out. I've got this lovely, bubbly, foamy top to my yeast mix, so it's ready to go in there. So I'll start the mixer going, and then I'm going to pour in my yeast mix. Now I'm going to add in, I'll add in the maple syrup first. If you didn't want to put maple syrup in, you could put honey, you could put glucose, golden syrup rather. There's a bread syrup here in Sweden. This is 3 tablespoons, and you can do this to a taste. You can add in brown sugar if you prefer, or white sugar. You can leave it out if you're avoiding sugar. I'm going to pop in the orange juice, but not going to put all of it in. I think I'll just eyeball it. And we've got 75 mils or 1/4 cup plus 1 tablespoon of sunflower oil. And as I said, you can do about 100 grams of melted butter, which is probably about 1/2 cup, I think, or just under. I'm going to knead that for about 5 minutes. I'm going to show you a little bit closer so you've got a close-up shot. Our aim is to get a really lovely clean bowl, which is looking good. I'm just going to bump the speed up a bit. Let's just check whether it's smooth or not. It's lovely and sticky, still a bit shaggy. Let me do it for another few minutes before I add my fruit. Okay, look how gorgeous that is. It's lovely and sticky and smooth. So I'm going to add dates and raisins today, but feel free to mix and match whatever you've got in the cupboard. I've taken the seed out and chopped up my dates in half and then a little bit half again. So that's 200 grams. I found with my dates, if I blended them or kneaded them too much, they kind of disintegrated. So I'm just going to gently mix them. And for a little bit of extra fruit, I'm adding some raisins. They're 60 grams or 1/3 cup. Just going to gently do that for about 20 seconds. Okay, I'm not going to add any more of that orange juice if you're wondering, because that orange was quite juicy. So here I have a prepared bowl which I've oiled. I'll just mesh that around a bit more. Put some sunflower oil in that. So that's going to be my proving bowl. Let's get this dough out. If you're thinking, oh no, my dough is really sticky, Sue, what am I going to do? I would recommend just going with it at the moment, and you can always add flour when you're kneading it later. It's better to have a lovely moist sticky dough, so it's extra hydrated. So let's pop this into our prepared bowl. Oh, the orange and spices and everything smells so nice. All I'm doing here is just folding it over, so I've got some oil on the top. And then we can pop those fruit bits in later. Pop some plastic on, pop a plate on, cloth. We're going to let it rest for an hour or 60 minutes until it's doubled in size. If your room's cold, it might take a little bit longer, but roughly that's a good guide. So I'm back with my dough, and look at that. It's lovely and risen, doubled in size. It's time to start dividing the buns or the dough. Today I'm going to do 12 smaller buns. So I'm going to do them about 90 grams to 100 grams for each ball. I've got a plate here. So go back. I've prepared my baking tray. I've just greased it and lined it with paper. And I've got a plate here with my scales. What I like to do is I like to pop all the dough onto the scales so I can weigh it out. Then I get Siri's help to divide it. Hey Siri, what's 1215 divided by 12? So that's 101.25. So it's roughly 100. So flour your bench. I've actually got some flour here. Grab the dough and pop a little bit of flour on top. Oh, I took the scales away. I need them back. I need to weigh each bun. Look, if you don't want to bother weighing them, just eyeball it and do it by eye, but I don't know, I like to have even looking buns. So we get about 6 out of this side. I've got my 12 balls already rolled out, so I'm just going to bring my tray closer. So all I do is I press it down slightly in the middle, drag it and bring it back into the center. Spelt flour is a little bit more delicate than regular flour. And then I roll it into a ball. If there's any large pieces of fruit, I pop them in and then I pop it on the tray. I'll do a few and then I'll zoom you in so you can have a closer look. We need to pop them a little bit close together so they can butt up, and that way you get kind of a more moist bun. So I'll do 3 across and 4 down. They're all done now. Just going to sprinkle a little bit of flour on the top and then cover it with a cloth. The flour is just so the cloth doesn't stick to them. I'm going to let these rest for 30 minutes, then we'll come back and we'll make the batter for doing the crosses, and we'll do that as the next step. So we have about 15 minutes before our buns are finished rising. So we need to pop the oven onto 190 degrees C with a fan. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll pop some other temperatures above. And we need to make the batter for the cross. If you don't want to put that on, you don't have to, but it makes it authentic. So in here I've got 60 grams of the white spelt flour, and in here I've got some water. Just check my notes. I've got 60 grams of white spelt flour, 4 tablespoons, and 1/4 cup or 50 ml of water. This is a different version to what I did last year. I've simplified it just so it's flour and water, and it worked fine. Just mixing that together so it's a nice thick paste. Today I think it's a little bit too thick. I'm just going to add a tiny bit more water. So it's kind of like this gooey mixture. And I'm going to pop it into, I've got a piping bag here, and I've got quite a fine small nozzle. And I've just got it standing in this tall glass. I find this is the easiest way to prepare it, and I'm folding my bag down just so it stays upright. I'll scoop all that in. So let's check what the buns look like. They look really good. Okay, this one's gone a bit funny on the side. Just repair that. I'm going to start doing the crosses, and I'm going to zoom you in so you can have a look closely. So I'm going to do a line right down the middle. My nozzle broke, so I had to stop the filming. I'm just going to do it gently, hopefully it stays together. My batter's all done and the crosses are made. Had a little bit of a malfunction with my piping bag. I'm going to bake these for about 20 to 25 minutes in my warm oven. As usual, I'm going to pop a little bit of water into the bottom of the oven as I'm baking. Just creates a little bit of steam, and it ensures the buns are nice and soft. And I'm going to bake these for about 20 to 25 minutes until they're golden brown. Just before the buns finish cooking, we need to make the optional sugar glaze. So in this small saucepan, I'm going to add 1/4 cup of water, and I need 1/4 cup of white sugar. And I'm just going to heat that on my stove top until it's nice and warm and bubbly. Also until the sugar's all melted. I should have said that. You can see our buns in the oven, they're almost done. There's only 5 minutes on the clock left to go. I'm over here at the stove top just melting my sugar and heating up the water. The sugar glaze is really lovely because it gives the buns a nice shiny gloss. It does mean your fingers get sticky when you eat them. And if you didn't want the extra sugar, just leave this off. So the sugar's all melted in the water, and that's ready to brush on. brush it on the top of the bun. So I'm just preparing my area, and I've got a little pastry brush that I'm going to do that with. And I think I'll bring the buns out. They look ready. They look ready already. Check these out. Don't they look delicious? Just be careful taking that little ramekin of water out of the oven. Now the fun part, we're going to paint on some of this sugar. And it is better to do them while the buns are hot. They've got that bakery style glaze now. I'm going to rest these for about 30 minutes before I split one open and show you what they look like on the inside. So let them just relax and I'll come back shortly. So it's time to do a taste test for our hot cross buns. I cut one open for photography. So look at that. Look how gorgeous and fluffy that looks. Boop, boop, boop. Sorry, I like being silly. So I'm going to just have half in front of you just to do a taste. It's got to have butter. If you find that the next day you like to toast them a little bit, yum. That is so good. I love hot cross buns, and homemade ones are even better. Homemade spelt ones are even better than ever. And here in Gothenburg, Sweden, no one's selling hot cross buns. They're only really sold where I know them from Australia, and when I lived in London as well, they sold them everywhere there. These are really good. Let me know if you give this recipe a go. Don't forget to hit thumbs up, share it with a friend, write a comment below your favourite combination. If you don't want dates or raisins, you can swap it out for cranberries, sultanas, orange peel, whatever you like. Happy Easter. Glad påsk, as they say here in Sweden, and I'll see you later. Vi ses, hej då. Yum, yum, yum.